Why do the loudest people rarely win the game of power? In a world that rewards self-promotion, smart people play a different game. They don't shout, they observe. They don't flex, they calculate. Today, you'll learn the forgotten strategy of kings, the reason the truly powerful never show off, and why the moment you stop seeking attention is when real success begins. In every kingdom, those who scream the loudest are often the ones with the least to protect. They wear their pride like armor, not because they are invincible, but because they are exposed. The man who shouts about his strength does so not to intimidate, but to mask his fear. The ones who constantly announce their value are not masters. They are beggars, begging the world to believe in a lie they themselves do not trust. The truly powerful, on the other hand, do not need applause. Their silence is not weakness, it is calculation. Their restraint is not fear, it is discipline. A real king has nothing to prove. His value is known without display. The very act of boasting is beneath him, because it reveals something fatal in the psychology of power, a craving for external validation. And here lies the secret most people will never understand. When you boast, you reveal the coordinates of your throne. You tell others where to strike. You give away your depth, your reach, your potential. The moment you open your mouth, you define your limits. But when you are quiet, when your eyes say more than your words, when your actions are precise and rare, then the world must guess. They must wonder who you are, what you're capable of, and where your influence ends. That uncertainty is your advantage. In the court of power, mystery is currency. The more uncertain they are about you, the more powerful you become in their minds. A man who says nothing forces others to fill in the silence. And they often overestimate. They imagine plots, abilities, and intentions far beyond what you may even possess. That imagination becomes your weapon. Think of the most dangerous men in history. They were not loud. They were not known for outbursts or declarations. They moved quietly, strategically, and only revealed themselves when the moment demanded it. They were feared not because of what they said, but because of what was never said. The unknown terrifies more than the known. This is the fatal flaw of the showman. He becomes predictable. His next move is already advertised. His desires are obvious. His envy, his vanity, his need, they are all laid bare. He cannot hide, and the moment a man cannot hide, he cannot protect himself. He is not a king. He is a puppet dressed in silk. Silence, however, is the mark of one who rules. It allows space to maneuver. It creates a void that draws others in. The less you say, the more weight your words carry when they are finally spoken. The less you reveal, the more they fear what you might do next. Noise is the game of the desperate. Precision is the game of the king. People mistake stillness for weakness. Let them. Their misjudgment is your disguise. While they mock the quiet, they expose themselves. While they laugh, they reveal their moves. And you, silent, calculating, unshaken, remain unseen until the strike. At the heart of every man who shows off is a fragile wound, one he desperately tries to hide behind gold, noise, and performance. The desire to be seen, to be admired, to be envied is not a sign of inner power. It is the cry of someone who doubts their own worth. It is a confession in disguise. The moment a man seeks to display his greatness, he betrays the fact that he fears it is not recognized. And if he fears that, it means he himself is unsure if it truly exists. Power, real power, does not need an audience. The lion does not announce his hunt. He simply moves through the tall grass, unseen, until it is already too late. The need to show off is an animal instinct for those who have not transcended insecurity. A man who is truly formidable is content being overlooked, because he knows that visibility is not advantage, it is vulnerability. The showman is always dancing. He is always performing. He spends more energy managing his image than mastering his reality. He cannot tolerate being ignored, because to be invisible terrifies him. His ego depends on external reactions. He is ruled not by discipline, but by the gaze of others. And the man who lives by the gaze dies by it. When the applause fades, when the audience turns, he collapses. He has built nothing. He is nothing without validation. This is why kings never flaunt. The crown is not heavy because it is adorned with jewels. It is heavy because it commands without explanation. A ruler who constantly declares his authority, his wealth, his intelligence, is a ruler whose authority is slipping. The more he says, the more he reveals he is not certain. The throne does not need to argue for itself. It simply exists. The moment a king must remind others that he is king, he is already losing control of the court. In every circle of power, there is a fool who speaks too much, reveals too much, shows too much. He thinks the more others see, the more they will admire. But the wise know better. The more others see, the more they will envy. And envy turns to resentment. Resentment breeds plots. The man who invites eyes upon him invites hands against him. The show-off turns himself into a target, willingly, foolishly, in pursuit of praise. But it is not praise that makes a man powerful. It is restraint. It is the ability to act without needing a spotlight, to possess without flaunting, to conquer without bragging. The most dangerous man in the room is not the one who talks the most, but the one who listens. He watches the proud man reveal his cards. He watches the fool overspend his influence. And when the moment is right, he acts, with precision, with force, without warning. A wise man learns early that admiration is fleeting. The same crowd that cheers for you today will cheer for your downfall tomorrow. Their approval is as shallow as their loyalty. The truly strategic mind knows that influence is not built on visibility but on control. Control of self, control of information, control of emotion, and above all, control of the image he allows the world to see. A true ruler does not seek the approval of the crowd. He does not parade his titles or wealth like a merchant desperate for buyers. His presence alone reshapes the atmosphere. There is something in his gaze, in his silence, in the way he carries stillness like a blade, that causes others to stand straighter, to second-guess their words, to feel smaller in his presence without knowing why. This is the essence of rule, not in noise, not in spectacle, but in the invisible weight of authority. A king does not need to remind others of his power, because his power is not dependent on their recognition. He does not waste words describing what he has done or what he is capable of doing. In fact, the moment he must explain himself, something is already broken. The throne is not earned through storytelling. It is earned through perception. When the ruler walks into the hall, no trumpets are needed. The silence that follows him is enough. Those in the room instinctively adjust, recalibrate, as though gravity itself has shifted. The insecure man boasts because he hopes his voice will hide his emptiness. He decorates his speech with exaggeration and hunger. He needs his status to be affirmed constantly by those beneath him. But the king plays a different game. He operates with the cold understanding that true power is felt, not spoken. It seeps into a room like fog, quiet, unannounced, and inescapable. And it is not simply the silence that makes a king powerful. It is what that silence implies. The silence is filled with consequences. Those who face him must guess, what does he know? What is he planning? What has he seen that I have not? Uncertainty creates tension, and that tension is what keeps others in line. No one fears the man who exposes all his thoughts, but everyone fears the man who withholds. There is no defense against the unknown. This is why the king does not flatter. He does not seek to be liked. He does not try to outshine others with decoration or flair. He does not engage in petty comparisons. His focus is domination, not demonstration. He knows that every boast is an offering, something to be used against him. Every time he brags, he gives others a map to his vanity. And where there is vanity, there is weakness. Instead, the king allows others to speak on his behalf. He lets the myth grow in whispers. His legend is carried in rumor, not in proclamation. While others are busy proving, he is positioning. While others decorate themselves, he sharpens himself. And when he acts with finality. One action from a true ruler carries more weight than 1,000 declarations from a pretender. In the court, the ones who boast the most are usually those with the least control. Their confidence is a mask. Their volume is a distraction. But the king, he stands still. He does not rise to challenge every insult. He does not respond to every provocation. He does not chase reputation. He lets reputation follow. Because he understands that power does not ask to be seen. It creates an atmosphere where being seen is no longer necessary. There is no greater weapon in the game of power than being underestimated. The world is trained to attack what it fears and ignore what it deems weak. And the man who is clever enough to disguise his strength beneath a mask of simplicity becomes untouchable. While others waste their energy defending their pride and advertising their power, the wise man withdraws into obscurity. Not because he is without weapons, but because he understands the advantage of hiding them. Invisibility is power. Doubt is a shield. When you appear harmless, no one prepares for your strike. The weak show off because they want others to believe they are strong. But in doing so, they remove all mystery. They expose the edges of their capabilities and, in the process, give their opponents something to measure, something to challenge. But when a man appears lesser, when he plays the fool, accepts the insult, lowers his eyes, he becomes invisible to his enemies. They walk past him, unaware that the blade is just beneath the robe. They mock him, not knowing they are feeding their own executioner. This is why kings often wore masks, not literal ones, but masks of intention. A ruler who is wise allows his enemies to believe he is undecisive, indulgent, even foolish. He allows the court to gossip about his distractions, his weaknesses, his hesitations. But in silence, he sharpens his vision. He studies the movements of every man around him. He sees what they cannot imagine he sees. And when he moves, they are unprepared, because they never expected a silent shadow to strike like a storm. To be underestimated is to be granted freedom. You are not watched. You are not challenged. You are not guarded against. You are allowed close because they think you are no threat. And that is when you strike, not with anger, not with noise, but with precision. One movement that ends what their vanity could never predict. The attack that comes from the one you ignored is the one that ends you. That is the rule of warfare and the art of the mind. The fool believes he wins by convincing others of his strength. The strategist wins by convincing others of his weakness. He plays a longer game. He lets others exhaust themselves in rivalry while he gathers position. They scream, they expose, they clash, while he remains still, invisible, calculating every misstep. When the moment is right, he does not hesitate. He does not announce. He conquers in silence. And this is not only about war or kingship. It is true in every social order. In the room, the one who speaks less, who appears indifferent, who accepts being overlooked. That man sees everything. He becomes the observer. He becomes the listener. And in time, he becomes the one who shapes the outcome. The overconfident give him access because they do not fear him. The arrogant reveal their secrets because they do not sense danger. And all the while, he prepares. A man who appears lesser disarms the world. He calms the suspicions of others. He invites comfort, and in comfort they sleep. But the one who pretends to be asleep is often the one already planning the next empire. The art is in the deception. The deception is in the humility. And the strike, when it comes, is unstoppable not because it is loud, but because it was never expected. The moment a man begins to prove himself, he reveals a dangerous truth. He is uncertain. True power, like true royalty, does not argue for its place. It simply occupies it. The need to demonstrate strength, intelligence, or worth is not a mark of confidence. It is a sign that these qualities are still unsteady within. The louder a man proclaims who he is, the more fragile his identity becomes. He builds his empire on shifting sands, on applause, on fleeting attention. And when the crowd turns away, so does his strength. A king does not beg to be believed. He does not explain his choices to those beneath him. He does not advertise his wisdom. To prove something means to enter a debate. But a ruler does not debate. He declares, he moves, he acts. And those actions become the proof. The man who must explain himself, who feels the urge to be understood or validated, has already descended from the throne of command into the pit of insecurity. Power is not about being right. It is about being beyond question. Those who rule from within do not chase outside approval. Their focus is not on being seen but on seeing. They do not strive to convince others of their superiority because their strategy is rooted in silence and certainty. When others try to provoke them, they do not react. When challenged, they do not rush to defend. This restraint is not weakness. It is the deepest form of control. A man who can remain still while others question him holds a weapon stronger than any sword presence. To be powerful is to be indifferent to recognition. The hunger for recognition reveals a gap inside, a space where self-respect should be. That gap demands to be filled with applause, with praise, with constant reminders of one's value. But power does not beg to be remembered. It leaves echoes in the silence after it has moved. The man who must speak of his greatness is still asking for permission. The man who carries his greatness in silence no longer needs anyone's permission at all. Every time you try to prove yourself, you are stepping into the arena of the common. You are lowering your station, meeting your critics on their level, and validating their power to question you. You turn their doubt into something that matters. A true ruler does not descend into the mud to wrestle. He remains above, untouched, letting the storm pass beneath him. The real display of strength is in your refusal to display it at all. The wise man understands that mystery creates respect. The unknown draws more power than endless explanation. When you prove nothing, they must assume. When you assume nothing, they must wonder. That wondering becomes fear. That fear becomes awe. And awe is the root of obedience. Even in moments of attack, silence is a strategy. The attacker expects a reaction, a defense, a rebuttal. But when you give them nothing, they lose clarity. They cannot find your center. They cannot anticipate your next move. You remain unreadable and therefore ungovernable. This is how you rule. not through volume or demonstration, but through mastery of restraint. Those who rule well are not the loudest, but the most unreadable. Their silence contains more weight than any speech. Their lack of effort to prove themselves is the very sign that they do not need to. They know who they are, and in that knowing they bend the world. The most dangerous man in the room is not the one demanding attention, but the one who needs known. While others scramble to be noticed, to be praised, to be validated, the true king remains still, watching, calculating, knowing that power does not come from visibility, but from control. The louder they speak, the more they reveal. The more they reveal, the easier they are to dismantle. But the one who holds his tongue, who hides his strength, who appears lesser than he is, he becomes untouchable. In a world obsessed with showing off, the wisest strategy is to do the opposite. Withdraw your ego. Starve your need to be seen. Let others underestimate you. Let them think you're ordinary. And while they perform, you position. While they show off, you sharpen. Until one day, without warning, you strike, not to prove yourself, but to remind them you never needed to. The truly powerful never announce themselves. They let the world feel their presence long before it understands what it's facing. And by the time it does, it's already too late.